Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is a very interesting excerpt from an interview, basically. Zack Snyder basically gives his idea, his thoughts on why the DCEU could never be like the MCU. And I do find this to be fascinating because there's a certain opposing sort of narrative that's taking place there, isn't there? So I think ultimately this is also what led to Zack Snyder leaving Warner Brothers, because Zack Snyder quite firmly says here he doesn't think that it would be like the MCU, right? But very clearly, Warner Brothers wanted that to happen. You only have to see how they rushed, really accelerated their efforts to get to Justice League because they wanted to catch up with the Marvel Universe, and then how they've now even softened up their approach. You've had the likes of Aquaman, very much an MCU style film. Wonder Woman 1984, very much an MCU style film. And well, I think would Birds of Prey kind of count as that? Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Suicide Squad, yeah. But you can see that they're very much trying to approach that angle. I know there'll be a lot of people, because the problem is, I'm talking about DCEU and MCU, there'll be a lot of people that just hate me because I'm talking about it because they sit on either side of the fence. But you can see that there was obviously a clash there. Zack Snyder didn't think it was going to go in that direction, he didn't want it to go in that direction. Warner Brothers very clearly did, by everything that we have seen. So here's the excerpt anyway, and we'll kind of talk about it. This actually comes from an interview on Filmjunkee. This is just Screen Rant's article on it, and they've just got the audio there anyway, the sort of transcript. And he says, well, frankly, I just love that they decided to kind of embrace their personality. I think that there was always this sort of criticism or the middle step. What's the middle step? You know, trying to be like Marvel. Trying to do your own thing, like, what are you going to do? But I think now it's kind of locked into this very specific trajectory where I think, and I hope, the idea is that it's filmmaker first. Okay, and he continues further and says, which is basically what the multiverse allows for. Filmmaker first, and then here's the characters bringing the characters together. I mean, look, he's saying, yeah, multiverse, I guess that's from the angle of, well, we had Joker, didn't we? Right, R-rated Joker. We've got Matt Reeves' Batman. I can't remember what else is being greenlit, which seems to be outside of the main continuity. But you can kind of see there's an element there to this multiverse, which, yes, if you're looking at what he's saying, I guess does allow creative freedom. But then that core continuity did seem to rush towards the MCU. I mean, even he has come out and said he never wanted to do, you know, he was planning to do other films first, but they rushed him, right? Now, he says further, even when I was doing Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Justice League, there were DC animated films that had nothing to do with what we were doing. And there were DC TV shows that had nothing to do with what we were doing. And there was no way to seam those up without alienating a giant fandom by saying, your Flash doesn't count, or your animated show doesn't mean anything. I think what DC has always done very well has been the animated movies. I think their animated movies are fantastic, or at least they have a long history of being absolutely fantastic. Anyway, now what he's saying here, I guess, is like perfectly reasonable. Now, I wouldn't have said that was actually the sort of multiverse element, because I'm looking at mainly movies. TV shows, meh. I don't care if they stand up. I'm sure lots of people like them, but I couldn't care less. But they've shown that they are connected in a certain degree, because we had Ezra Miller's Flash turn up in the CW's Flash. So we know that they're connected in a certain way. Now, he continues further and says, I think that Marvel, they've built their universe over a long period of time. So by the time they got to their later movies, everything had kind of locked in, and it was all sort of moving in the same direction. But that was just never going to happen with DC, because the DC TV shows were so popular, and because their animated shows were so popular. I mean, that was a success that they had. And Christopher Nolan's movies sort of had another tone and another universe. Sorry. So there was no way that those things were going to ever be like, okay, we're going to say those things don't exist now, and it's this. And I think there was that thinking for a while. But I'm glad that it kind of settled into a much more diverse approach. So he's saying... he seems to contradict himself a little bit here. So he says... So there's no way that those things were going to ever be like, okay, we're going to say those things don't exist now, and it's this. And I think there was that thinking for a while, but I'm glad that it kind of settled into a much more diverse approach. But they do seem to have done that, don't they? Maybe not with the TV shows or the animated shows, but with some of the movies they have. And even some of the TV shows, they've shown that they are connected. At least they're not just scrapping it. But they're also building, if we're, being led correctly to believe, that they are actually building to a massive multiverse thing here anyway. Flash movies, Michael Keaton's in it. All the Batmen exist. Everyone's come out and said all of this, that, and the other. So I don't know how much I kind of agree with this. It sounds like... Jasper, what are you doing, bro? It does sound like they are kind of doubling back on a lot of the stuff that they have tried to do. Because inevitably, I would say that they were trying to build to an MCU-style universe. I think that's pretty obvious. Like, you can just... It's all there. The trajectory they were going on. The fact that they ramped stuff up real quick to just catch up to it. But I think deeper, again... I'm kind of trying to read between the lines on this. I think what this really does show, and those supporters of Zack Snyder will hopefully agree with me here anyway, I think this does reveal why, ultimately, there was this sort of mishap between Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers in DC. Because, he wanted it to go in one direction, clearly away from that MCU style. And you had Warner Brothers very clearly, very, very, very clearly... looking to push towards that style of movie or style of universe, whatever. You only have to look at like Wonder Woman 1984 compared directly with its predecessor. Tonally are all over the place, and you only have to look at again Joss Whedon's Justice League compared with Batman vs Superman, and ultimately what we'll see with Zack Snyder's Justice League. That'll be the biggest comparison, where you go, oh, well, they were clearly going for that then. Like, very, very clearly they were going for that. So anyway, I hand it on over to you. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comment section. If you're new here, do consider hitting that subscribe button. It really does help the channel out. And also just leave a thumbs up, drop your comments down below. That's a really good way of supporting the channel, along with my Patreon, which is linked down below, as well as a link to PayPal, so you can just chuck in a buck or two if you want. But anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. I've been Mr. H. Take care.